So, who was the first woman? It sounds like a pretty simple question, right? But the answer completely changes depending on where you look. Are you digging into scripture, folklore, or even science? Today, we're going to unravel the really surprising stories behind this ancient question. We all think we know the story of Adam and Eve from the book of Genesis. But what if I told you that's just the beginning? The original texts actually create this fascinating puzzle, this kind of gap in the narrative that has stumped scholars for centuries. And it's that gap that gave rise to a whole different story, one that exists just outside the official version. Okay, let's start with the name everyone knows, Eve. I mean, for billions of people around the world, she is, without a doubt, the first woman and the mother of all of us. Okay, so get this. If you actually crack open the book of Genesis right at the very beginning, you find two totally different stories about creation, back to back. In the first chapter, it says God created male and female together at the exact same time. But then you flip to the second chapter, and the story changes. Now, Adam is created first, all by himself, and only later is Eve made from his rib to be his partner. So here's the thing. Even with these two different versions, tradition basically picked one and ran with it. The second story won out. And Eve, the woman created from Adam's side, is officially named the mother of all living. That title really cements her role as the first woman in Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions. But what about that first creation story? The one where the man and woman were made as equals? Well, that little contradiction led to a whole other legend, one you are not going to find in the Bible. It's the story of a woman named Lilith, Adam's supposed first wife. According to medieval Jewish folklore, Lilith was that woman from Genesis chapter 1. She wasn't made from a rib, nope, she was formed from the exact same dust as Adam at the exact same time. And this is a huge deal, right? Because it means from the very beginning, she was created to be his equal. And because she saw herself as an equal, well, she refused to be submissive to him. The legends say the big conflict happened when she refused to take a physically submissive position to him, arguing, pretty logically, that since they were created equal, they should be treated as equals. So when Adam and the divine powers rejected her demand for equality, Lilith made a shocking choice. She uttered the secret, ineffable name of God, which gave her the power to fly, and she just left. She escaped the Garden of Eden, choosing a life of exile over a life of subjugation. Okay, let's hit pause on mythology for a second and jump into a totally different world. What if the answer to who was the first woman isn't in an ancient text, but is actually hidden inside our own DNA? Genetics gives us a different kind of ancestor, a woman we call mitochondrial Eve. Now, she's not a single person from a story, she's a scientific concept. She is the woman from whom every single living human today descends in an unbroken line, traced only through our mother's DNA. Now, this is super important because it's easy to get this wrong. Mitochondrial Eve was not the first human female ever, not by a long shot. And she definitely wasn't the only woman alive back then. There were thousands of others. It's just that, by pure random chance over thousands of generations, her maternal line is the only one that has survived in every single person on Earth today. By tracking our mitochondrial DNA backwards through time, scientists figure that this common ancestor, this woman we all share, lived in Africa somewhere around 150,000 years ago. Just think about that for a second. So, we've got these two powerful myths and one mind-bending scientific reality. Let's go back to the myths for a moment and put them side by side, because they really represent two fundamentally different ideas of womanhood. This table just lays it all out so clearly. You've got Lilith, made from the same dust. She's the equal who demands independence and chooses exile. And then you've got Eve, made from Adam's rib. She's the companion who stays and becomes the mother of all humanity. Their legacies couldn't be more different. One is a symbol of rebellion, the other of partnership. But the story doesn't stop there. These legends kept evolving, and Lilith, the woman who was cast out, ended up casting a long, dark shadow over folklore for centuries. For hundreds of years, Lilith was transformed from a rebel into this terrifying demon who was said to prey on newborn infants. This fear was so real that families would use protective amulets, just like this one. They were often inscribed with the names of three angels who supposedly controlled her, and a very clear command: Adam and Eve, out Lilith. It's basically a spiritual restraining order, meant to keep the first wife away from the second wife's children. This kind of fear naturally makes you wonder, right? If Lilith was kicked out of paradise, how does she get back into the story? How could she possibly get her revenge on the couple who replaced her? Well, in folklore and later in some incredible Renaissance art, Lilith returned to the Garden of Eden in disguise. She came back as the serpent. This idea got so popular that it was immortalized by artists like Michelangelo. If you look really closely at his masterpiece on the Sistine Chapel ceiling, the serpent, wrapped around the Tree of Knowledge, has the face and the upper body of a woman. That's a direct link to the legend of Lilith. But in the last century, wow, her story has had a total makeover. She's not just a demon anymore. To many, she's a feminist hero, the first woman who ever stood up for her rights. And her story has been adapted in some seriously creative ways, from being the star of some wild ancient alien theories to modern stories where she returns not to tempt Eve, but to empower her. And just to show you how far out there these reinterpretations can go, some ancient astronaut theorists suggest the entire Eden story is really a misunderstood record of, well, genetic engineering. In this version, Lilith was a successful but uncontrollable human prototype, and the serpent wasn't the devil but a rogue alien scientist offering humanity the knowledge or maybe a DNA upgrade of self-awareness. In the end, these figures, Eve, Lilith, even our scientific ancestor, they stick around because they represent these core parts of the human story. Eve embodies connection, family. Lilith represents autonomy, rebellion. Their stories survive not as ancient history, but as a timeless question they ask every single one of us. In our own lives, which path do we choose? Are we the partner or are we the rebel?